Thank you. May I request that we get started? Good morning, members of the media. Thank you once again for pitching for this third press briefing that we are doing on the margins of the National Executive Committee of the ANC that is currently underway. It is day 3, the last day of the National Executive Committee meeting, ending today, followed by the manifesto review tomorrow, which is a closed session. I do need to stress that. And for this media briefing, I am here to introduce Comrade Thembi Nkadimeng, the chairperson of the National Executive Committee's Subcommittee on Legislatures and Governance. She will be walking us through some of the interventions and some of the measures that the ANC is directing its public deployees to implement as a way of improving the state of local government. Over to you, Comrade Thembi.
Thank you very much, Comrade Mahlengi, and good morning to all of you. And let me appreciate the opportunity, Comrade Mahlengi, to have an opportunity to address our people at home and give a brief on the key areas of the local government space, but also broadly the legislature and governance areas. Well, let me start focusing mainly on the state of local government. We all know that we have got perennial problems, which emanates mainly from our inability as municipalities to spend the funds that are being allocated, leading to difficulties with regard to service delivery. And key to those focus areas, the ANC has decided, one, to up its stake on its ensuring the training and the capacity development of public representatives who come from the home of the African National Congress, that is mayors and PMTs, but also ensuring that we improve on the infrastructure capacity that the municipalities are supposed to have in part of their institutional memory and development. We also need to ensure the ring fencing, which to me is one of the key decisions that the LNG has taken. In terms of ring fencing for catalytic infrastructural municipal infrastructure. I mean, you are residents of South Africa, you stay in a particular ward because of our own demographics of municipalities. In some instances, you come across through sewer that is running through the streets, potholes, both in municipal and provincial roads that are possibly crossing through towns. And one, it's part of what the Interministerial Committee on Sector Departments has been resolved on to ensure that Department of Human Settlement, municipalities, COCTA, DFFE, particularly on the environment and waste and waste collection, DWS, which is water and sanitation, and many other sector departments, Department of Transport, on categorization of road, for example. I mean, I've been a mayor before. I know a road that passes through Polokwane, it's a national road, and the municipality may have to go through quite a number of processes to be able to repair a R71. And what the NEC is saying, it's a collaboration method which is mixed with DDM to ensure that through the Deputy President Paul Mashatile, the IMC is able to collaborate everybody else and roll out those projects. And with regard to underspending, which I had said is a perennial problem, for example, in the past financial year, municipalities collectively have lost close to $1 billion. That's around 900 million, which we have taken back into the fiscus, meaning the National Treasury has taken it back because we had not spent it according to our plans. So we've created a hub of planning to ensure that all the planning is prior the conceptualization or the commencement of a financial year. Talking to you now, we have already taken close to about 92 expect to different municipalities to roll out projects, because you will be aware that our financial year started some 6-7 days ago, which is the 1st of July, contrary to the national and provincial financial year, which starts at the beginning of the year. And this allows us that as the provincial and national government closes their financial years, it carries over through the areas of development that they will also be starting in the beginning of their financial year. So in our joint planning, what the monitoring and evaluation of the ANC does through the office of the DSG is to lift all what we had promissory made as their deployees to ensure that we implement, roll out, to oversee it, which means what councillor and a council must know a school will be built where, a police station will be built where, areas of service delivery which are beyond municipal responsibilities. You know very well that the Schedule 4 and Schedule 5 duties, 4 be mainly being municipal, 5 be mainly being provincial and national. Of course, there's cross functioning of areas where a ministry could allow a municipality to perform a particular function, which is at 5B, for example, a certain portion of rules and responsibilities could be given to a municipality with regard to management of beaches by environment and tourism, or management of police and extension of traffic police from SAPS Section 40 of their Police Act. Quite a number of all those responsibilities which are then given to municipalities to be able to. And finally, is our agreement and adoption, actually, which is part of what has been tabulated today, of the accountability framework. We all can't shy away from what the AG has said, or has always repeatedly said, with regard to we need to be able to account for all the rents and cents that have been allocated to us as government. Now, when I'm saying LNG is has a broad area of responsibility, it does not necessarily look at municipalities only, but it looks into government as a whole. How do you enhance our policies? We are looking into the IMSA bill to ensure that the accountability framework is infused there. But we're also ensuring, you may know, in our previous NEC we dealt with the coalition strategy and its amendment, and you may be aware that we are leading also in terms of discussions politically in ensuring that we try and create a stable country at the municipal level. I mean, we have got 8 metros which carry a population of about 40–45%. So which means half of our population resides in the metros, where there's a highest level of instability with regard to coalition management, coalition setup, which affects negatively service delivery. And it's usually better to look on hindsight so that it don't seem like you are on an attack. Let's look at Nelson Mandela Bay in the last term of 2016 to 2021, the 5th administration of local municipalities. They turned back no less than 520 million, which was allocated for human settlement, because metros are licensed, contrary to all the other 205 local municipalities. Metros are licensed by human settlement to build directly houses, which means they get, like me, they get a tranche of human settlement, identify their beneficiaries, appoint and build. They did not build even a single house, not one house. And they had, if you count in Nelson Mandela Bay, they had no less than 15 to 21 mayors, not in that term, but collectively, since we have started in the 21 years of local government. So we're trying to look, and we're championing one, for example, the introduction of political threshold with regard to representation in council. If you look at the city of eThekwini, currently it has around 24, 25 political parties, including independents, which makes the council. So if you are a mayor in a coalition like Mayor Mxolisi Kaunda, you have got 24 individual people that you are supposed to talk to and beg to understand the importance of your budget and its priorities. But if you just introduce a 1% threshold, which means collectively as we go for proportional representation in the National Assembly, I think you need about 30,000 seats. Yours, you wouldn't calculate it at 30,000, but you'll take a voter's roll. How many people make a ward? let's say it's 3,000. Roughly wards are around that area. 3,000 at most, in cities 7,000, but nothing bigger than that. And you introduce 1% of that population of a particular ward and say you need to get at least 1% of people who represent you. Because currently, with the low turnout as well of voting, there are wards which get as low as 10, 15% of representation of people who showed up to cast their ballots. But if you have got 10 and I've got 6, you are the winner. And you speak confidently as if you represent the 6,000 people who reside in that ward. If you take that exercise of 1%, it will reduce the party representation in the city of eThekwini to about 7. And it becomes something that is manageable. It will relatively be better to talk to 7 different parties to formulate a coalition, to formulate a space of driving, than convincing 24 separate individual parties. When today you did not greet me or didn't like how you addressed in the corridor, I pushed for a motion of no confidence. I moved from one area to the other. But also looking in this Nelson Mandela example, for example, what is one of the lessons? The lessons is that all their IDPs in the 5 years had human settlement allocation and had beneficiaries in areas prioritized. But what does that mean? It means Mayor A, when she arrives, she says, no, I don't want that settlement. Let's start and plan that other one. And they start. As they are planning, there's a motion of no confidence. Mayor A is out and Mayor B says, no, I don't want where Mayor Mahlengi was planning. I'm going to plan another. And she's busy planning a motion of no confidence. So all the years we are rotating on who needs it first, not that there's no one who doesn't need it. And 5 years lapsed and they did not build for any of those that they'd identified. So we're championing as the ANC that we will move beyond in the IMC bill to make IDPs mandatory and locked to such an extent that a coalition, once it has agreed on an IDP, you can change the leaders, but don't change Gogo Dlamini and say she doesn't need a house now because it's Mayor A or Mayor B. So we want to lock IDPs, and we do believe that it will help in ensuring that, because remember, at the local government sphere, it's the only sphere where it's mandatory, it's compulsory by law that you talk to the people. So an IDP doesn't belong to a mayor, it belongs to its residents. And who changes it? It's council, without even the consultation of the community. So we're also looking into policy and legislature review to ensure that we close on those spaces. I think I will conclude Comrade Mahlengi. There's quite a number of issues, maybe when they are given an opportunity for questions. But fundamental to us is the legislature, is policy review, is infrastructure and acceleration, is the management of coalitions. Of course, I mean, coalitions have been worsened for us as the ANC, but also other parties have learned as well. In their initial stance was, we don't want anyone who don't black, green, and gold. We don't want to manage ourselves. Without you, we think we can do better. And the answer, even on themselves in those councils, have been slightly different, because it's a management of everybody else from different party aspirations, different policy positions of parties. So it moves beyond emotions, it moves beyond how do you feel about the others. And as a result now, we get more requests. Can we discuss ANC? Can we run together? Can we? And it does not mean there are no challenges, but we could be able to assist with quite a number. Of course, I haven't unpacked the entire strategy of the ANC with regard to coalitions as well, but it's a partnership which is informed by the context, but given the framework that the ANC says fundamental, our people take priority. The intention of the ANC being in government is to give people services they so deserve. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Comrade Tembi. I will now invite members of the media to ask the questions. Yes, Ms. Africa?
Thank you very much. Zianda Mbogo from Newsroom Africa. I have a series of questions. One, has there been a discussion on the efficiency of the district development model? For me, my understanding of it was that it was also supposed to provide, for instance, heat maps, which means municipalities are struggling more than others. You have a large national picture, right? But every time there's a disaster, we had floods in KwaZulu-Natal last year, and then recently there were tornadoes. The response time and the ability to be able to absorb the crisis still seems to be slow. So has there been an assessment on that, even in terms of speaking to your colleagues in the infrastructure departments about the type of infrastructure they put in place that is able to withstand disasters, because we're having provinces that are more disaster prone? The second thing is about the capacity of councillors. You are still struggling with councillors who know what they're doing, and that's just a fact. So what is the ANC saying about the caliber of its employees and wards, because these are the core face of service delivery, and you're going into an election next year. The third one is about the Section 154 process in eThekwini. The councillors there seem to be defying that process. They're wanting to do their own thing, and yet they're actually under administration. What is the ANC saying about that? Because you have an ANC mayor in power. And then my last one is, the last time we were here, David Makura spoke to us about a discussion, I don't know how far it is, about putting a threshold on the number of motions of no confidence in councils, because that is part of talking about the stability of coalition governments. Where are we with that now? Thank you.
Thank you, Zianda. Can I go to you over there? Yes, please. Trustee.
Good day. My name is Lungane from Kasiafa. I would like to know, has the ANC received the letter from acting regional leader of the ANC regarding the state of collusion there with the EFF? We saw two statements, the one coming from the leader of caucus, Tumzo Dabati himself, saying that the partnership between the EFF and the ANC has no lack scholarship value. And we saw another statement saying that acting secretary, regional secretary, the statement themselves from the statement. What is your understanding of what is happening in regarding the EFF and the ANC? And what I'm going to do to make sure that there is stability there, taking into account there is a metro.
Thank you very much. I will come this side. ENCA?
Yeah, Chidi Jones from ENCA. Just first question, what's been done to ensure that there's due course to resolve the issue in case that, particularly with the Auditor General saying that there's about 9 municipalities that face imminent collapse under the weight of years-long challenges? Is this something you're looking into? And then just lastly, the situation in the Northern Cape as well. I understand one person has died due to the floods that have caused havoc in the area. Are you also looking into this province as well, which seemingly is faced with challenges of floods? Thanks.
Thank you very much, SABC.
How far are you engaging with the Democratic Alliance in voting together in amending the municipal legislation, and how councillors are effectively elected in coalitions? Thank you.
So sorry, can I add just one more? I'm sorry. My last question, I missed it on my notes. There's a report this morning in one of the Sunday papers about the Deputy President leading talks with opposition parties. Action SA is the only one that didn't fetch up. How confident are you when you look at the announcement by the DA, Action SA, etc., that you've got the buy-in from other political parties outside of the EFF, which we understand is already on board?
Thank you very much. I think that's more than enough set of questions to give it a best. Comrade Thembi?
Okay, thank you very much. Let me start. I'll deal with them in the order in how they came, and I'll start with Sizianda's questions. The efficiency of DDM, as I had indicated, I might have not been able to articulate everything given the 7 minutes, but just to touch on, remember I spoke about the Deputy President, Comrade Paul, leading the sector departments to ensure that that's delivered. That's DDM in trying to ensure, the ANC trying to ensure its efficiency and also rolling out and unpacking. In fact, in this NEC, we're going to an extent in our presentation, which I'll be doing shortly after, I leave this room, going to an extent of analyzing the task that the NEC last gave me was to go from municipality 1 to the last, and analyze that there are no roads in Mafikeng, and analyze that in Standerton there's almost 2% of roads that you go there, and what must we do about it, right? And what must we allocate? And be able to say to the NEC, since 2016 to today, there have been 50 perennial non-spenders municipalities. Who are they, and what are we putting to ensure that the ANC will be in control of spending? So very detailed, very practical. The response time with regard to flooding or disaster has proven not to be a financial issue, has proven to be a consolidated planning issue. For example, in the example you are making here, is that the April floods which we had in KZN, if I'm not wrong, COGTA has already dispensed about 1.2 billion on the basis of, but the last time I visited eThekwini specifically to go and deal with the disasters was in April, May, and their spending was very low, extremely low, right? So the collaboration of NDMC and PDMC then, which is the Provincial Disaster Management Center, and the Office of the Premier to take over the implementation of some of the projects is what we have resolved, and we're beginning to see the fruits of what is coming out. The second delay actually for human settlement, which makes it relatively so unfair, because when you look into the figures of human settlement with regard to that disaster, they will not be moving. But the problem is relatively at a municipal level, because it's the identification of land. Remember, where the floods occurred, it's an area which is actually a wet land. Now, the study said don't rebuild there, because in the next 2-3 years, you may lose the houses again, which means the planning division of the municipality must be prompt and provide land. 2 areas which have been provided, the community has rejected. So there's quite a lot of difficulties and coordination that needs to happen, and an understanding. Remember, your house carries a lot, and your area carries a lot of sentiment. Your mother, your father, your grandfather, and whatever have been there. Moving a person out of that space is relatively not easy. So we are in constant discussion. And I will jump to the section 154 because I'm already in eThekwini. And I think that was raised by, oh, it was raised by you. Okay. Yeah, the section 154. Well, I'm still coming to the capacity. I'm just saying, if this is an example of eThekwini, the MFMA framework provides for non-delegated municipalities with regard to financial management, hence the MFMA. Now, one step which the province missed in its consolidation for the enhancement of 154 was consultation with the Office of the Treasurer, that is Finance, Minister Kodungwa. I then wrote to them, I said, put a halt, we have jumped a step. You need to. And so you remember that eThekwini is one of, as metros are, they are economically and financially ranked. So you can't do any adjustment without making sure that you tick all the boxes. So it's not that there's a revolt. I mean, I wrote a letter, as I'm saying to you. It's not a hearsay. I wrote a letter. I said, hold on, province. You have jumped a step. Metros, as you know, are non-delegated, and we have got to make sure we put a plan together with the National Treasury on how we enhance. Now, there's no intervention in eThekwini. There's a problem, like we always do. We use these terms interchangeably. Section 154 is a support mechanism as defined by the Constitution. It's not administration. Section 139, it is an administration. So eThekwini is not even proposed for a 139. There's no intervention that is needed, but there's a support package. Now, if you support a non-delegated municipality, you also need to put a financial package support, not with regard to distributing of money, but also with regard to the spending, for example, that we are talking about, but also to the financial flows. There could be a need that you may want to give them their money, not necessarily in the defined tranches of how the law defines it, maybe promptly than that. And National Treasury, they are the only ones who are supposed to do that. So the talk of the municipality stalling and whatever, it was discovered correctly so by council to say this, and the mayor communicated, and I said, hold that council, I'll also put it in writing, which I did. Now, the threshold for the motion of no confidence, as I was talking, there's quite about 6 or 7 key areas that the ANC is proposing with regard to framework for the coalitions. And I only spoke to 2, of which one is what you are raising, a threshold for motion of no confidence. If you go back to the example that I've given, really, I mean, let's look at the city of Johannesburg. How many mayors have they had in the past, you know? We're reaching a situation where if you are a resident of a city of Johannesburg, you may, you knew who your mayor is tonight, you are never certain who your mayor will be the following day. So we are also proposing that motion of no confidence must be on the basis of the fundamentals of what council is defined to do. You know, maybe let's say you are violating what the MPEC rules as Section 52, a report is supposed to come to council as a mayor, you're blocking it because you don't want it to expose or whatever, then you can put a motion of no confidence. The mayor is in violation of something. But it can't be that Party A now think, no, I no longer like Party B. Now I'm going to Party Z because they are affording me a position of human settlement, which has got mad. And some of these parties openly even go and invite you and say we have been given MMC position. Very powerful. So we're moving from the other pact to the other. I mean, such motions are disruptive. And we do believe that there has to be areas of what... and in line with that, Comrade Paul has been assigned. And you are correct in citing the newspaper article of today. I think the 27th of July will be in the Western Cape, putting all the stakeholders, at least in the local government sphere, to try and propose and get that, which we had framed as the ANC led by the Deputy President, to ensure that we discuss the fundamentals of the coalition so that we could be able to be in agreement. Look, we are not saying other parties must stop being their party, but we are also saying it's politically immature to say I can't talk to you. I mean, really, what type of politics is that? I don't want to talk to those ones. I can never engage. Even on areas where we are seeing things eye to eye, there's no politics there. Yes, you may listen to people and then say, no, 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 of which you have a right to make a choice. But I have never seen, even in areas where we are in agreement, but for the fact that you are wearing black, green, and gold, that's the premise for me. I will not even talk to you, Zian. It's immature. And it has proven not to be functional. You know, in my previous life, I was the president of SALCA. And we were the first one to develop a framework in 2020 when we were realizing that the outcomes of 2021 elections are going to be catastrophic. We moved from 29 coalitions to almost around 80 coalitions for the first time. Since year 2000, local government elections, we had been at 22, 29, 37 was the highest. We pulled back to 29. We moved from 29 to 80. Now we put the coalition framework. And it was a framework, not a law. And we said to them, parties come. Talk about this because we are going to need this just as you cross the line. They did not show up. Parties did not want to discuss, right? They only called after the elections. Well, I was gone already. The president who was then sitting and was saying, hey, I'm called here, we need to have this discussion. And it was coming from an immaturity point of view as well. But also, given the benefit of the doubt, it was coming at the time where everybody was fortunately or unfortunately focusing on elections. And when you put something, people become skeptical. No, you want to box us, you want to talk to people. But I do believe that now the situation is opportune because the parties, for the first time, as I say, have agreed to even undergo and visit countries where they went to learn about coalition. And one of the fundamentals is that you must talk. In fact, Kenya is the greatest example. They are even able to sign their coalition pact before the election day. One of the requirements we are putting also as the ANC is that this coalition framework must be publicized. You stay in Johannesburg, supposedly. What is the coalition agreement that is on the table? What are these people agreeing about that is a benefit of the people? You know? So there's quite a number of those considerations. The capacity of councillors, I think really, this question must be asked to other parties, at least from 2021. Is the ANC, which came boldly, interviewed its mayors, designed a program. I, as the chair of, deputy chair then of LNG, tabulated policy and procedures from the Tuli House, besides the nomination, but also on how are we going to. It's mandatory that they go to school. The ANC ensures that. We are undergoing assessment currently from the party to ensure how was our, I mean, for example, how is my 100 days? I've just been appointed a minister in March. So I'm going an assessment on Tuesday for my 100 days. The same with mayors. In fact, this NEC has looked into consideration on movement on some of the people and enhancement on some who have been found to have difficulties with regard to management. We're the only party which pronounced on mayors with qualifications, not unless there will be a reason why other due considerations like prior learning needs to be looked into to put. But also, at a capacity level, we take even our councillors to a political school. It's mandatory for you to be able to do that. And Mahlengi was doing it so excellently until they stole her to another. They are at the coalface. It's understandable, but it's a starting point. And I must also appreciate that we have learned also as the ANC that even the system that we have, as I'm saying, we're going under reviews all the time, that it needs to be enhanced with regard to capacity, but it is there. So we boldly made a statement and we even pronounced it. Lungi from Kasi, FM. Yes, there are discussions with regard to the coalition in Ekurhuleni. The statements between Comrade Lavati and the regional secretary, it has been taken over by the province, which had been mandated by the NEC, by the way, to discuss the coalitions and try and find amicable solutions. As I've said earlier on, no one has a manual on how to drive this car. Coalitions are new in South Africa. We are learning every day, and there are silent issues that we may have to deal with them. But creation of stability is one of the key things that the ANC is promoting with regard to coalitions, but also to ensure that services are given to the people. I mean, at Tembisa, at Davidton, and everywhere else, it's of importance that they receive those services. ENCA, collapsing 9 municipalities. In fact, what we have agreed with the AG, which we have circulated, it's a second draft of a fiscal review. And it's important that we all grasp this, because there are 2-3 different categories of municipalities besides A, B, and C, that is local, district, and metro. No, besides that. There are municipalities that are dysfunctional, not because there's corruption or anything, but because they are grade 3, right? It's a small grade, it's a small municipality, it's rural. There's no one who affords to pay there, no one pays. And the system currently says municipalities must generate 90% of their income to supplement what they're supposed to do. So most of us here, we have relatives in rural areas. We were born and bred there, right? You know that if you go to Fita home, no one pays you besides one street in Beresford where the town is. No one affords to pay. If you go to Mkanduli, if you go to Sengu municipality. Now Sengu, for example, has 9 clean audits in a row. 9 in a row, unhindered. Matikizela municipality as well is one of the new municipalities which got a clean audit. They collect 0. They are struggling. They are one of my perennial municipalities. So accountability is not an issue. So why is Sengu and Matikizela struggling to spend? It's because you are a chartered accountant. You prefer to work in the city of Johannesburg because they pay you 1.8 million. Because those ones are graded 3. They are going to pay you 320,000. You're not going to stay there. So we're saying the fiscal review must also look also in benefiting those, one, who are accountable, 2, who are dispossessed today and previously, enhance them to ensure. So part of the people we have placed as mandated by the ANC is to such municipalities so that they are able to lift the spending which is resulting into a delivery. So the collapse actually is not facing 9 municipalities. It could be that the AG was talking in the realm of KZN. If you look very well into the reports of National Treasury, it tells us there are 43 municipalities that are facing a fiscal collapse, which belongs into this category of grade 2 and grade 3. Now, we have introduced the matter of the review in Parliament already as COPTA to say, let's refund them and define their funding used by the, guided by the Office of the State SA. How many people are employed there? How many are poor? How many? What is their free basic allocation of water and electricity? How short is it for the people who deserve it, etc.? So that is what could take us out of how other municipalities. Yes, then you have municipalities like the Tsobot, well, where everything goes very wrong, but it's not necessarily the grade only. It's lack of accountability from council to administration. But often when I hear about the report of the AG, I hear everything being bundled together as if everyone is on the same brush who doesn't spend or who face a collapse. There is a huge distinction. And as the ANC, as I've said that today, we're done with the accountability framework and we're enforcing to ensure that, one, we're accountable for our planning, we're accountable for our implementation and delivery, but we're accountable for the decisions that we make and take, which are supposed to be in promotion of our community and our societies rather than to be against them. The framework of DA, it's part of the discussions that Comrade Paul is leading. But as I am saying, if you recall very well, when we came out of elections of 2021, what the DA said, he said, we don't want to talk to them. They must stay away from us. But today, they are saying, we are also saying, let's come to the table. Because I think it's the maturing of democracy, which, by the way, we may not be understanding the system, particularly at local government level. It's a multi-party governing system at local government. We might have not been used into the coalition, but if you go and look into the assigning of powers and the calculation of proportional representation at local government, it was to ensure that even if you have got 10 votes at a proportional representative level, we must afford you a voice because there are few people who selected, chose you. Thank you very much, Comrade Mahlengi.
Thank you very much, Comrade Tembi. Okay, there's some follow-ups.
That's okay.
We'll gladly take that. I know that the subject that is being covered today is quite extensive.
Not to take up too much of your time. I think maybe I need to put my question differently when I was speaking about the capacity of councillors.
Okay.
And that's why I deliberately put it after my question about the response to disasters, because one of the critical things that I found when I was covering the floods last year was that many people were saying, we don't even know our ward councillor, and these were in ANC areas, and if our councillor did respond, they too did not even know who to call in the municipality, etc., etc. So when I say capacity of councillors, I'm not talking about the mayors, I'm not talking about that level, I'm talking about ward councillors who are literally living within communities, but they, as the president always says, there's a social distance between your councillors and the communities that they are meant to be embedded in. Where's the training? What kind of monitoring? That's the main thing. Monitoring mechanisms. That's why I mentioned district development model. Monitoring mechanisms to say in Ward 104 or Ward 1, Kwaklimba, this councillor is doing what they're supposed to do. They don't even file reports as far as I'm concerned. So that should surely be a cause for concern.
Thank you very much. I'll suggest that we try and keep our questions Let me go to my brother at the back before I take yourself, because at least he's having the first bite. Yes, please continue.
I'm Eric Martin from the Citizen. I would like to know with regards to Nelson Mandela. You mentioned that funds have been obtained. What is going to happen to those funds? Are they going to get reduced amount next time, as it is always kind of policy? But is that going to affect service delivery further, or are they going to get more?
Thank you very much. I wanted to prioritize media colleagues that haven't had a chance to ask a question. Gert?
I know in some countries like Germany the threshold is quite high, something like 5%. Will 1% be sufficient to establish more sustainability in the coalition government?
Thank you very much. Then I will turn to yourselves very quickly, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, just my question on Northern Cape, intervention by government, because as far as I'm concerned, my colleague was there saying that also, like similar to what my colleague was asking, there hasn't been much of presence of government officials on the ground. In fact, Gift of the Givers has been helping community members as so far as since when the flood started. So just context around that, yeah.
Thanks, Ulia.
What is the diversion view between yourselves and the Democratic Alliance when it comes to this coalition framework that you are currently discussing? Where are you finding one another? Where are you not finding one another?
Thank you very much. Over to you, Comrade Tumbi.
Okay. All right, Zia, now I get the capacity issue. And I'll answer it in two different ways. One as a deployee and one as a member of the ANC. And I'll start from the ANC point of view. Every ward councillor is an ex-officio member of a branch. Supposedly you're not a member of the BEES. And it's mandatory that BEES sit on a monthly basis and a ward councillor must give. And they load that information into iCloud. Some of our comrades here work and interact and interface with the iCloud on a day-to-day basis. And key amongst their responsibilities is to raise issues of service delivery and concerns that are happening at their branch level. And that's what happens and gets to be observed by our mobilization team and ensuring that we get to ANC responding to all. And that is how, for example, Lijima campaign is based. Lijima campaign, we just don't wake up as the ANC and say, Piki Mabela and the president go to that corner. No. We then say, okay, from that area, there's a problem in Mangaung. And this is what councillors are saying about Mangaung. President go and Lijima there. There's a problem in eThekwini. Go as you are part of the NWC that sits and visit KZN. We choose specifically eTheku so that the president can engage with the people directly. So it's a well-oiled system. Yes, there could be gaps between a person who reports and an implementer. An implementer is me in this instance, who is working for the ANC, deployed in government, who's supposed to oversee all what the ANC is supposed to do. But we do daily almost training of councillors, and we may not be able to pick up at the same rate. But we also want collaboration with our communities, because not all the problems of a particular area for 7,000 people who are resident in that ward can be resolved by one man or one woman. So that is why you have got ward committees, that is why you have got CWPs, you have got EPWPs, which are supposed to be part of what a ward councillor is supposed to pull. If you look into our ward committee levels, it actually defines what the ward committee is supposed to do. One is supposed to look into crime, social amenities, to ensure that the whole compact of socio-economic compact in that particular ward happens. Yes, there may be difficulties, but the strategy is well aligned, and it ensures that it picks up all the issues and we are able to deal with them as government. The same with the monitoring. Now, if you report on iCloud, and the iCloud is automatic, is on real time, you load, it is able to report back. From a government point of view, when we come into such, then we get to be fed to be able to prioritize such of these areas. For example, we may be implementing on what's supposed to be done. If you take a good example of floods, I went to Nkomas when there were floods in the beginning of the year, I think it was March or April. Uncle Freddy, Cyclone Freddy. The ANC was the first to arrive. The chair of the ANC actually distributed no less than 1,500 food parcels. Maybe the media didn't see it. When we arrived there as government, people had already been registered. We know what they had lost. We know the houses. We know everything. And we came with a trailer for foreign home affairs, where some had lost their documentation to be reprinted and registered and put into the system. What have we discovered, which also slows down, is that before even the emergency can kick in from a government point of view, Home Affairs should have confirmed that these people are within our system and this is what we could be able to do. But we have come up with other different procedures. For example, in that area, because they were not on a flat line per se, Human Settlement now has an adjusted policy of distributing of material rather than building for people or people putting them into temporary units. Of course, an assessment happens before that, and you are given immediately material so that you could be able to start building. And quite a number of the KZN floods of people who prefer to go to other areas, not what we have put them into that program. I went back to launch it with Human Settlement, and we distributed to no less than 90 household beneficiaries who were preferring to say, look, we'll rather build at the backyard of our place, and we know it's secure, and we'll opt for that. But trainings here can never be enough. So what I can possibly find a commonality with you is that there will be areas where even when systems are put in place, we'll still have to refresh. That is why there are refresher courses, even in the private sector, to ensure that you believe and understand what we are supposed to do. But not forgetting that we are almost in a new term of local government. You know, our exit at local government every 5 years is almost over 80%. So you start afresh, literally, you start afresh across the country. You can check it on the IEC, it will tell you. You start afresh from introducing, and local government is one sphere where is highly regulated. So to educate a person what to do on how to register a formal settlement is a story. How to plan it is a story. How to make sure that free basic services. But even the council system is oiled. Study groups, portfolio committees, mayoral committee, MPEC, council. Now, most of the things that we need to be able to do is to ensure that we are capacitated. Eric, the issue of Nelson Mandela Bay is the same as everywhere else. If you don't spend the money, it goes back into the fiscus. Fiscus meaning it goes back into finance and they reallocate the funds. But the system allows, like everywhere else, that, okay, you had planned to build so many houses. How far are you with your plan? Can you be able to rebuild? That is what we call reallocation. And you can be reallocated that money or a portion of it depending on how. So I'm saying to you, we know as the ANC now that out of the 257, we've got 50 non-perennial spenders, which we are talking about them today. And we're saying this is what we need to do in the non-perennial. Now, the law allows us at COCTA, who are the transferring agent of MIG, for example, to these 50 municipalities to say, put engineers, put whatever in case of an infrastructure to ensure that it assists this municipality. If you read DORA section 20, it tells you what you could be able to do. And this is what we've been mandated to do. But the money gets to be reallocated. It could be taken by social development or home affairs or another municipality. At first, we were fighting that at least it must remain from the sphere. But the biggest challenge is that the biggest loser, if a money is not allocated, is the resident. So in this instance, the biggest loser is these old men and women who are expecting a house, and they did not get it because of our council differences and instability. So we are trying to rather support so that the money does not get to be reallocated, but it goes to a person who so deserves it. The threshold, Gert, you are very much correct. I think in Denmark it's the same thing as well. It's around 5%. The good thing is that there's a commonality. We are mostly in agreement, Samgelo as well, even with the DA, in terms of the threshold. We've not yet reached percentages. For me, Gert, in building of the case, whether it's 1 or 5, I was just making an example that from our COGTA point of view, when we were sitting, doing the calculations, convincing ourselves as to whether this is the right thing to do, we looked at it in 2 municipalities. Informed by the difficulties. If you recall, eThekwini had 2 or 3 council meetings struggling to adopt a budget. And I called the mayor, I said, Mayor, why are you not adopting a budget? Because I see a request for extension, right? And he explained to me, I've got, he was somewhere at around 18. He says, I'm consulting, Minister. I'm consulting. I'm consulting, you know? And this is practical. It's not a joke. Practical. So, yeah. And then you go to the city of Johannesburg, you will recall how Sesimpo struggled as well when she was mayor. And she also asked for an extension. City of Tshwane was even worse, asked for extension. City of Tshwane in the past term could not even elect what committees. They couldn't. Council could not sit to elect what is mandatory by law for 5 years. So you've got to put a threshold somehow. And for me, the comforting fact is that we're in agreement. We will see which percent goes. We're tabulating not a percent, but a principle. So at COGTA, we did a study of 1% on the 2 municipalities, eThekwini and the city of Johannesburg. We shall see further at the political discussion. And maybe, Samgelo, let me also say, we're agreeing we're agreeing on mostly on the what determinations of us facing a fact, which the ANC has already introduced as well. And fun, it has been mainly other parties who have not been in support to us. There are some municipalities which shouldn't exist as municipalities, at least in the scope that they are in, if you get to look how other countries are functioning as well. Yes, there could be a fiscal review, and it will assist small areas and whatever, but the approach can't be locked and not flexible in other areas. We can't have a system that is from Mosina to Cape Town, everybody is the same. There are quite a lot of differentiators that could be appreciated in the system to allow areas. I mean, each and every space in the country of South Africa falls under a ward. Now, one of the reasons why Northern Cape, for example, is so difficult to integrate is because you move from one farm and the other. If you look even at cost material on how it is difficult to build and why the cost indicators are different in the Northern Cape than other provinces, it takes you to that. Even in the implementation of disaster, it's vast, very few people, scattered and disaggregated all over the place. Now, NDMC has been there. In fact, in this meeting, we are saying to the NEC we need to support about 9 or 11 municipalities in the Northern Cape. I may not remember them by heart. Meaning we need to go and place experts. We have already assigned 2 people from NDMC to go and look at the disaster in the Northern Cape and be able to assist and ensure that there's rebuilding. Weakness, another, which I should have also mentioned on Zianda's question, is that we do not have prompt system. Even when you are on a disaster, you still have to follow the supply chain process the way it is. And I mean, we're one of the few countries we still did that. Then why are you calling it a disaster? Because a disaster, you've got to lift people up urgently, you know. But we landed SAPS with a chopper to get food in the Northern Cape to areas. But look, a municipality will not have that. So it may be having the food ready. We need Minister Kele to assist us, to borrow us a chopper, to land in an area where a bridge has been washed away. So it may not necessarily be prompt, but there are systems that government has to put in place. Maybe we may have to iron that.
I'm sorry, my colleague is there, so we just got like 2 last questions. He's in the Northern Cape, just 2 last questions, and I'm done. Just cost of damage in the Northern Cape so far, and just lastly, is it true that the municipality, Menkalimi Namakoi, is underfunded as well? Because I think that's one of the pertinent issues. that's been raised in that municipality, and then that's a problem.
That's fine. Mr. Jones?
Well, you know, he's asking me what I may not necessarily recall by head, but I will attempt, Sis Mahlengi, because
That's fine.
I think I have the information handy on which of the municipalities are in the Northern Cape that we have been instructed by the ANC to assist. The funding is on the basis of assessment, so you cannot say what they've asked is on, which is one area which delays as well with regard to the release of funds, because the law says public works, the army or the police or everybody must walk into the space and do a quick preliminary assessment. Port St. John's, for example, you know, a premier was saying, I'm now going to kill a national treasury because the release is slow. But actually, it was not the release that was slow. It was the assessment that is low. And you can imagine in provinces where there are no such deliverables or ready available staff that can be able to do the assessment on behalf of the province. We rely on people. No, there's no interest. There's no interest. We've got to review and rework our payment schedule. In the former days, for you to be a teacher in town and to be a teacher in Soweto, you are remunerated differently. I mean, there are areas which don't attract. You will not go there here as well. Right? You will not go there.
Certainly.
You know, so that's what we are dealing with. But in Northern Cape, Pokwane, Jomrolonga, Magara, Ubuntu, Renosterberg, Sianguma, Kaiharip, and Zazavan. That's where the NEC has mandated us to go. So we're coming. We will assist. Thank you very much.
So your question has been responded to.
Well, he wants money, but I don't know the money. I'll go and check it.
We are not
I'll go
certain
and
whether
check
it was your follow-up question or it was genuinely from the Northern Cape. But, for another day.
But I commit to check the response on what we're going
Thank you, colleagues, and thank you very much for a very engaging set of questions and also for very comprehensive responses from one of our local government experts in the ANC. Thank you very much, Comrade Tembe.
Thank you very much.